For this photo, I'm going to show you a few different more artistic edits, kind of vintagey feel that you can do. Just playing around with the photo a little bit more and having fun with it. The first one I'm going to show you is with Pioneer Woman's actions, so it's absolutely free, and I'm going to run the 70s action. This is actually a really fun one. And one thing to remember with actions is that you want to pull the opacity back almost always. You don't want them to be too overpowering or be too dramatic. You want the naturalness to still shine through. So I'm going to pull that back just a little bit. And then I want to run the boost also of Pioneer Woman's just to add a little bit more definition to it. And a lot of times when you run another action over the top of one that you've already done, then you need to flatten in between. Some of them will run and some of them will just get all messed up. Sometimes if you just click on the background layer, then it will run okay, and in this case it will. So we'll just do it that way so that we can adjust the 70s more later. So as you can see, the boost just gives a little bit more definition to it. I'm going to pull back the boost just a bit, and I'm going to decide with the 70s how much of it I want there. I want it to have that vintage feel. And I like this, so I am going to leave it right here for now and just do a snapshot so I can go back to it later to show you. And I'm going to start over, so I click on the history here. I'm going to show you a couple of Florabella's actions that I particularly like. From her new classic collection, you can run a base action and then play around with different filters over the top. And one thing to remember is you do not need a ton of actions. Sometimes when you have too many, it's just overwhelming. If you just have a few different options, because not every action works on every picture, then you can just always have your favorite go-to actions that you use, and it will speed up your workflow a lot. I'll use actions sometimes that I just don't love very much, so I just don't keep them in my toolbox because I know that I'm not going to use them, and they just take room. So I'm going to pull the opacity back just a little bit here. And because I know I'm going to be adding some filters on here that lighten it up, I'm going to take off the lighten layer. So I've run classic film. You could do classic rich or classic color, it doesn't matter. This is just the base action. And here's how it was before and after. So this is a pretty good clean edit, and I love this, but we're just working with a little bit more artistic today. So some of the fun ones, Blue Ginger is a good one if you want that kind of hazy vintage feel. And it's usually a little bit too soft for my taste. Everybody has different editing styles, so I like to add the richer, deeper on top of that. And I usually have to pull this one back quite a bit because it's a little bit too much. So here's before and after, and I think I'm going to put a little bit of the cross process in there also. This just gives it a little bit of that retro feel, a little bit of a green tint over it. There's before the cross process and after. And I'm going to add a little bit of dark to here. As you can see, rarely does an action go perfectly right off the bat. So sometimes you might run an action and think, oh, I don't like this at all, but if you play around with it a little bit, then you'll get a good result. This one also has a soft and peachy layer that you can turn on. That's in the classic film action, and that's kind of a fun feel to the photo too. So I'm just going to save that snapshot and show you a couple others. Gypsy is a great one in the fall. I love Gypsy in the fall and with winter colors. But let's see how it works on this one. Oh, kind of a fun result. I'm going to pull the opacity back, turn off the lighten layer because I don't want it quite so light. I want to preserve the lines here and not let them wash out too much. So here's before Gypsy and after. I'm going to pull the opacity back just a hair and darken it just a little. And you can also play with different layers and decide if you like them on or off, or you want them less intense there. But I'll leave this one that way. And let's try one more. Vintage Summer is a really, really strong vintage action of Florabella's. It will rarely work straight because it blows things out, as you can see. But if you pull back the opacity of the whole thing, play with the spotlight layer a little bit, so this one is a really strong vintage feel, but sometimes that's what you're going for. So let me show you. Here is Pioneer Woman's 70s in Boost. This one is the classic film along with a little bit of cross-processing and blue ginger. Oh, another good one that you can do with the classic film or any of those is the sweet tea, and that gives it a really vintage look too. And of course you can play around with the opacities on these till you get what you want. Maybe turn off blue ginger and leave sweet tea. Lots of different combinations that you can do with this. Then we've got Gypsy and the Florabella Vintage Summer. So they're all very different vintage looks, but all really fun and artistic. So play around with different actions and see what suits your style best. Always remember that you don't need a ton of them, you just need a few favorites. And also remember that almost always you'll want to pull the opacity back and not let it be too strong. Sometimes if you're at 100%, it's just too much and they start to look a little cheesy. Of course, it's all a matter of taste and a matter of your art and what you like best. So just have fun with these different artistic edits.